The alarm woke at 4 in the morning. It was not the soft beeping of her personal clock. It was the deep, heavy sound that shook the walls of her small room. The red light above her door was flashing. She knew what it meant before she even opened her eyes. Another breach, another fight. She was already moving before her mind was fully awake. Her body knew what to do. 2 years of training and combat had made everything automatic. She pulled on her combat suit, a tight black material that would stop claws but not teeth. She grabbed her plasma blade from the charging station. The weapon hummed quietly in her hand, warm and familiar. Was 17 years old. She had brown hair cut short because long hair was dangerous in a fight. She had a small scar on her left cheek from her first battle. Her eyes were dark and calm, even now, even as the alarm screamed through the colony. She stepped out of her room and into the hallway of the military barracks. Other young people were moving too, all of them between 15 and 19 years old. They were the Dawn Guard. They were the ones who fought the creatures that came through the rifts. They were children who had been changed, modified at the genetic level to handle fear and pain in ways normal humans could not. Adults could not receive the modification. Their brains were too set, too fixed in their patterns. Only the young could become what had become. Only teenagers could look at monsters and not freeze. Only they could kill before breakfast and still remember how to smile. Was waiting at the end of the hallway. He was 18, tall and thin, with burned scars that covered the left side of his neck. He had gotten them in a battle 6 months ago when a creature had breathed fire at him. He never talked about it. He was the squad leader, and he was the best at keeping everyone alive. Eastern perimeter, he said. His voice was quiet, it was always quiet. Big one, maybe 40 or 50 walkers. Nodded, 40 or 50 was a lot. Usually they faced 10 or 20 at most. Sara and arrived next. Sara was 16, small but fast, with quick hands and quicker reflexes. Was 17, strong and solid, the one they called when they needed something hit very hard. They were team. They were her family in ways her real family could never be. They ran through the colony streets toward the eastern wall. Nova was not a large place. It was a collection of metal buildings on a planet far from Earth. 20,000 humans lived here, trying to make a new home among the stars. They had found this world empty and peaceful. They had built farms and schools and homes. They had thought they were safe. Then the rifts started appearing. 30 years ago, human scientists had developed faster than light travel. They had torn a hole in space to move ships across the galaxy in seconds, but they had torn more than space. They had opened a door to somewhere else, somewhere dark and hungry. The creatures came through, the hollow walkers, things with too many legs and no eyes and mouths full of teeth. They could smell human fear. They hunted it. They fed on it. The eastern perimeter was chaos when arrived. The rift hung in the air like a wound in reality, black and purple and wrong. Creatures were pouring out of it, scrambling over each other in their rush to reach human flesh. The automated guns were firing, but there were too many. There were always too many. Formation 3 said. They moved without speaking. They had practiced this 100 times. Went left, Sara went right, took the center and stayed back to direct them. Activated her blade. Blue light burst from the handle, forming a curved edge of pure energy. It could cut through anything. It was the only weapon that worked well against the walkers. Bullets hurt them, but blades killed them. The first creature came at her fast. It was the size of a large dog but shaped wrong, with 6 legs and a body covered in hard black shell. Its mouth opened sideways like a book. Did not think. She moved. Her blade cut through its neck and black blood sprayed into the air. Another one was already behind it, and another, and another. The battle became a blur, danced through the creatures, her blade singing as it cut the air. She had learned to move like water, flowing around attacks instead of blocking them. She had learned to see patterns in chaos, to find the gap where she could strike and survive. Time lost meaning. There was only the next creature, the next cut, the next breath. Her arms began to burn from swinging the blade. Her legs ached from constant movement. But she did not stop. She could not stop. A scream cut through the noise of battle. Turned and saw Sora on the ground, a creature's claws deep in her shoulder. Without thinking, threw her blade. It spun through the air and buried itself in the creature's back. The thing died with a screech. Ran to Sora and pulled her free. Blood was pouring from the wound, red against her black suit. "I can still fight," Sora said through gritted teeth. "No," said, "fall back." Sora wanted to argue, but she knew was right. She crawled toward the medical team that waited behind the line. Retrieved her blade and kept fighting. An hour passed, maybe two. The sun began to rise over painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful, thought in some distant part of her mind. It was strange that something so beautiful could exist in the same world as this blood and death. Finally, the flow of creatures slowed. Was at the rift now, placing sealing charges around its edges. The technology was old but effective. It would close the door for now, though another would open soon enough. They always did. The charges exploded with a flash of white light. The rift shuddered, twisted, and then collapsed in on itself. The air where it had been looked normal now, just empty sky. Stood among the bodies of 47 dead creatures. Her suit was covered in their black blood. Her blade was dripping with it. Her hands were shaking slightly, the only sign that she was not a machine. Was sitting on a rock nearby. He was staring at nothing. During the battle, a civilian had wandered too close, a man who had not reached the shelters in time. A creature had gotten him before anyone could help, had seen the whole thing. He had not spoken since. Walked over to, his face was calm but his eyes were tired, so very tired. "Good work," he said. Sora asked. "She will be fine, the wound is not deep." Nodded. She looked down at her hands, at the black blood that was drying on her skin. "Go clean up," said. "School starts in 40 minutes." School, the word felt strange, foreign, like it belonged to a different life, a different person. But nodded and walked toward the decontamination showers. She had a test today in xenobiology. She could not remember what chapter it covered. She could not remember what normal felt like. The water was hot and it washed the blood away, but it could not wash away what she had done. It could not wash away what she was. She dried herself and put on her school uniform. Blue jacket, gray skirt, white shirt. She looked at herself in the mirror. She looked like any other student. She looked like a girl who worried about homework and friends and the future. But her eyes were different. There was something in them that did not belong to a 17-year-old, something old, something cold. Picked up her school bag and walked out into the morning light. The sun was fully up now. Birds were singing in the artificial trees. Somewhere, a child was laughing. Nova Central Academy was the only school on the colony. It was a large building made of white metal and glass, sitting in the center of the main. Trees grew around it, real trees brought from Earth and carefully tended. Flowers bloomed in neat rows. Everything looked peaceful. Everything looked safe. Walked through the front doors at 12 minutes past 8. She was late. She was often late. The teachers had stopped marking it against her record months ago. They knew why she was late, even if they did not talk about it. The hallway was empty because classes had already started. Her footsteps echoed on the clean floor. The walls were covered with student artwork and announcements about upcoming events. A dance was planned for next month. The debate club was looking for new members. The cooking class was having a bake sale. These things felt like they belonged to another world. A world where teenagers worried about dances and clubs and bake sales. Had lived in that world once before her modification, before her first kill. She could barely remember what it felt like. Her first class was xenobiology. The classroom was on the second floor, room 204. She could hear Mr. talking through the door, his deep voice explaining something about alien plant structures. She took a breath, straightened her uniform, and opened the door. The room went silent. It was always like this. Every time entered a room, people stopped talking. People stopped moving. They just looked at her with wide eyes and held breath. Mr. paused in the middle of his sentence. He was a middle-aged man with gray hair and kind eyes. He looked at and nodded. "Take your seat," he said quietly. "Yes, sir." She walked to her desk in the back of the room. 30 pairs of eyes followed her every step. She could feel their stares like weight on her skin. She did not look at them. She had learned not to look. Her desk was in the corner, away from everyone else. It had started as her choice, but now it felt like a wall that she could not cross. The empty seats around her were not empty by accident. Other students had moved away over time, one by one, until she sat alone in a small island of space. She sat down and opened her bag. She took out her textbook and her notebook. She found a pen. These small actions felt difficult, like she was performing them in a dream. Mr. continued his lecture. He was talking about the plants that grew on this planet before humans arrived. They were strange things, with purple leaves and roots that could dig through solid rock. Tried to listen. She tried to take notes, but the words kept slipping away from her, like water through her fingers. Her hands were still shaking, just a little, just enough that her writing looked unsteady. She put down her pen and pressed her palms flat against the desk. In front of her, 2 girls were whispering, and they were both popular, both pretty, both part of a world that did not belong to any more. Had long black hair and a smile that seemed to light up any room. Was her best friend, smaller and quieter but always by her side. Could hear them whispering, even though they were trying to be quiet. "Did you see her hands?" said. "They are shaking," replied. "Do you think this morning?" The alarm went off. Everyone heard it. "I heard it was a big one. My dad said 50 creatures." 50? That is impossible." "That is what he said." They both glanced back she pretended not to notice. She pretended to be reading her textbook, but the words on the page meant nothing. They were just shapes, just ink on paper. The class continued. Mr. asked questions. Students raised their hands. Normal things happened in a normal way, but existed outside of it, like she was watching through glass. When the bell rang, students stood up and gathered their things. They talked and laughed and pushed each other playfully. A boy named was telling a joke. People were groaning at how bad it was. Someone threw a piece of paper at him. Packed her bag slowly. She waited for the room to empty before she stood up. It was easier that way. Fewer people to walk around, fewer eyes to avoid. She looked up. Mr. was standing by his desk watching her. "Yes, sir." "Are you all right?" It was a simple question. It should have had a simple answer, but did not know what to say. Was she all right? She had killed 47 creatures this morning. She had watched her friend get hurt. She had seen a man die. And now she was standing in a classroom that smelled like chalk and cleaning products, and she was supposed to be all right. "I am fine," she said. Mr. looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were sad. He knew she was lying, but he also knew that there was nothing he could do. "If you need to talk," he said, "my door is always open." "Thank you, sir." She walked out of the classroom and into the crowded hallway. Students flowed around her like water around a rock. No one touched her. No one came close. They moved away without thinking about it, creating a path wherever she went. Walked to her second class, then her third, then her fourth. Each room went quiet when she entered. Each room stayed quiet until she sat down. She took notes. She answered questions when called on. She did everything a student was supposed to do. But inside, she was far away. She was still at the eastern perimeter, standing in black blood. She was still holding her blade, still watching the rift close, still feeling the weight of death in her hands. At lunch, she did not go to the cafeteria. She walked up the stairs to the roof access corridor. It was a small space, hidden behind a maintenance door that was always unlocked. The Dawn Guard had claimed it as their own months ago. The administration knew about it but said nothing. There were many things the administration knew about but said nothing. Was already there, sitting against the wall with his eyes closed. Sara was there too, her shoulder wrapped in white bandages visible under her uniform. Sat apart from them, still silent, still staring at nothing. Sat down next to Sora. "How is your shoulder?" she asked. "Hurts," Sora said, "but it will heal. The medic said I can fight again in a week." 1 week. Such a short time to recover from a wound that would have kept a normal person out for a month. But they were not normal. The modification made them heal faster, think faster, react faster. It also made them different in ways that no one fully understood. Said without opening his eyes, "You need to eat." Did not respond. He had not eaten since yesterday. He had not spoken since the battle. They all knew what he had seen. They all understood. "Give him time," said quietly. "We do not have time," replied. "The rifts are getting bigger, more frequent. Command thinks something is changing on the other side." "What kind of change?" "They do not know, but they are scared." Scared, the word felt strange coming from. He was never scared. He was the one who kept everyone calm. Through the small window in the wall could see the courtyard below. Students were eating lunch, sitting on benches, lying in the grass. A group was playing some kind of ball game. A couple was holding hands under a tree. She watched them like watching animals in a zoo. Interesting, foreign, impossible to touch. "Do you ever think about it?" Sora asked suddenly. "Think about what?" "What it would be like to be like them, to just be normal." Did not answer for a long time. She watched the couple under the tree. The boy said something. The girl laughed. Such a small thing, a laugh, such a simple thing. "Every day," finally said. "I think about it every day." The bell rang. Lunch was over. It was time to go back to class. Stood up and brushed off her uniform. She looked down at her hands. They had stopped shaking. They looked normal now, clean and ordinary and young. But she knew what they had done. She knew what they would do again tomorrow or the next day or next week. The creatures would keep coming. The rifts would keep opening, and she would keep killing. Because that was what she was made for. That was what she was. 3 days passed. 3 quiet days without an alarm, without a battle, without blood. For most people on Nova, these were ordinary days. For in the Dawn Guard, they felt like borrowed time. On the 4th day, something different happened. A new student arrived. First saw him in the hallway between classes. He was walking with the principal, Mrs., a small woman who always wore gray suits and a tired expression. The boy beside her was tall, maybe 18 or 19, with short black hair and a face that showed nothing. No expression, no emotion, just emptiness. Knew that face. She had seen it in the mirror. She stopped walking and watched them pass. The boy's eyes met hers for just a second. In that second, something passed between them. Recognition, understanding. He knew what she was. She knew what he was. Dawn Guard. The whispers started before lunch. A new transfer student, from a colony called Bright Hope. But Bright Hope had been evacuated 6 months ago. Everyone knew about it. The rifts there had become too many, too fast. The whole colony had fallen in one terrible night. Found the new student on the rooftop at lunch. He was already there when she arrived, sitting in the corner where usually sat. Was somewhere else today, finally eating again after days of silence. Small progress, important progress. "You are Dawn Guard," said. It was not a question. The boy looked at her. "Yes." "From Bright Hope." "Yes." She sat down across from him. "I am," he said. Silence fell between them. It was not an uncomfortable silence. It was the silence of two people who did not need words to understand each other. Arrived next, then Sara with her shoulder still bandaged. They looked at and knew immediately. There was no need for introductions, no need for explanations. They just knew. How many? Finally asked. Understood the question. How many survived from Bright Hope's Dawn Guard? Just me, he said. The words hung in the air. Just me. The Dawn Guard at Bright Hope had numbered 23. 23 young soldiers, trained and modified and ready to fight. 22 of them were dead now. The rifts came too fast, continued. His voice was flat like he was reading from a report. 3 opened at once, then 5 more, then more than we could count. We held the evacuation point for 6 hours while the civilians escaped. When the last ship left, there were only 7 of us remaining, then 5, then 3, then me. How did you get out? Sora asked quietly. The last ship turned around. The pilot saw me on the monitor. He came back. Paused. He died doing it. A creature got into the ship. I killed it, but not before it killed him. The ship crashed outside the evacuation zone. Another ship found me 3 days later. 3 days. Alone on a fallen colony, surrounded by creatures waiting for death or rescue. Could not imagine it. She did not want to imagine it. How long were you Dawn Guard? She asked. 4 years, since I was 14. 4 years. Most Dawn Guard did not survive past 1 year. 2 years was rare. 3 years was almost unheard of. 4 years was a miracle. You are the oldest surviving Dawn Guard in any colony, said. There was something like respect in his voice, something like awe. Shrugged. Luck, mostly luck. But knew it was not luck. You could not survive 4 years of this on luck alone. There had to be skill, instinct, will. Things that could not be taught. Things that could only be learned through blood and pain. Why did you come here? Asked. You could have retired. After Bright Hope, no one would have blamed you. Looked at her. For the first time, there was something in his eyes, something that might have been sadness or anger or both. And do what? He said. Go to school, get a job, pretend that I am normal. I do not know how to do that. I do not remember how to be anything except this. Understood, she understood completely. The modification changed more than their bodies. It changed their minds, their souls, their very sense of self. They were made for war. Peace felt foreign to them now. Below the rooftop, through the window, the other students were having lunch. Laughing, talking, living their small and precious lives. They did not know how close they had come to dying 3 days ago. They did not know that 30 kilometers to the east, 17 creatures had been killed in the night by and her team. They did not know that the only thing standing between them and horror was a handful of teenagers who had forgotten how to be young. They do not understand, said, following her gaze. They can never understand. No, agreed, they cannot. But that is why we fight, so they can stay ignorant, so they can stay innocent. It was a strange thought, fighting to protect ignorance, dying to preserve innocence, but it was true. The worst thing that could happen was not their death. The worst thing would be if everyone had to become like them. Sora shifted, wincing as she moved her injured shoulder. What was it like, in the end, when everything fell? It was a question she should not have asked, but understood why she needed to know. They all needed to know, because what happened at Bright Hope could happen here. What happened to his team could happen to them. Was silent for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was even flatter than before, like he was pushing the words out through a wall. It was fast, that is the strange thing. 4 years of fighting and the end came so fast. 1 hour we were holding the line. The next hour half of us were dead. The creatures were different that night, bigger, smarter. They worked together in ways we had never seen before. They learned our patterns. They adapted. He stopped, took a breath, continued. My best friend was named. We had fought together for 3 years. He died 2 meters away from me and I could not reach him. I could not save him. The creature that killed him looked at me afterward, just looked, like it was studying me, like it was remembering my face. The air felt colder, the world felt smaller. Something is changing on the other side, said. The creatures are not just animals anymore. They are becoming something else, something worse. Nodded slowly. Command thinks the same thing. They have been increasing patrols, shortening response times, preparing for something. It will not be enough, said. What is coming? I do not think anything will be enough. The bell rang. Lunch was over. Time to go back to class. Time to pretend that everything was normal. They stood up one by one. Sara stayed sitting, still looking out the window. I said. He looked at her. You are not alone anymore. Whatever comes, we face it together. For a moment, something flickered in his empty eyes. Not hope exactly, not happiness, but something. A small crack in the wall he had built around himself. Together, he repeated, like he was testing the word, like he had forgotten what it meant. Nodded and walked down the stairs. The hallway was crowded again. Students pushed past her, around her, through her. She was invisible to them, a ghost walking among the living. But for the first time in a long time, she did not feel completely alone. There were others like her, others who understood, others who carried the same weight, saw the same darkness, fought the same fight. It was not much, it was almost nothing. But sometimes almost nothing was enough. A week passed. Then two. The rifts kept opening, but they were small. 3 creatures here, 5 creatures there. Nothing that required more than a single squad to handle. It was quiet, too quiet. The Dawn Guard knew what quiet meant. It meant something was building, something was coming. Sat in her history class on a Tuesday morning, listening to a lecture about Earth. The teacher, Mr., was talking about the Great Expansion, the time when humans had left their home planet and spread across the galaxy. He showed pictures of old ships, talked about brave explorers, made it all sound like an adventure. He did not talk about what they had found, what they had awakened, what was now hunting them across the stars. Took notes. Her handwriting was neat and precise. Anyone looking at her notebook would see a good student, careful and organized. They would not see the girl who had killed 8 creatures last night while they slept safely in their beds. Beside her, 2 rows to the left, was also taking notes. She glanced at sometimes, quick looks that she thought were hidden. Noticed everyone. She noticed everything now. The modification had made her senses sharper, her awareness constant. She knew where every person in the room was sitting. She knew the exact distance to the door. She knew 3 ways to escape if something came through the window. These thoughts never stopped. They ran in the background of her mind all the time, even in sleep. Threat assessment, escape routes, combat options. She was never truly at rest. After class, something unexpected happened, approached her. Stopped walking. People in the hallway paused to watch. This was unusual. No one talked to, no one came close to her voluntarily. Yes, said. Looked nervous. Her hands were playing with the strap of her bag, but she did not walk away. I wanted to ask you something, she said. There is a group project in biology. We need partners. I was wondering if, maybe, you would want to be in my group. The question was so normal that it took a moment to understand it. A group project. Partners. Working together like ordinary students on ordinary homework. Why? Asked. Blinked. What do you mean? Why me? You could ask anyone. The silence stretched. Around them, students were watching, whispering. This was the biggest news of the week. Popular talking to strange, scary. I do not know, finally said. I see you sitting alone all the time, and I thought maybe you would like to not be alone for once. It was such a simple answer, such a kind answer, did not know what to do with it. Okay, she said. Smiled. It was a small smile, still nervous but real. Great. We can meet after school to work on it. In the library. I cannot stay after school today. Tomorrow. Thought about the patrol schedule. Tomorrow night was her night off, if nothing went wrong. Tomorrow should work, she said. Great, said again. I will see you then. She walked away, rejoining who had been watching from a distance. They both looked back at as they left, looked confused, looked something else, something that might have been satisfied or proud or simply happy. Stood in the hallway, not sure what had just happened. For the first time in months, someone had reached out to her. Someone from the normal world had crossed the invisible wall around her. It felt strange, it felt dangerous, it felt like hope. That night on patrol with Anne, she mentioned it. A group project, said. They were walking the northern perimeter, checking sensors, watching for anything unusual. The night was dark and cold. Yes, with a girl from my class. Her name is. That is good, said. Connections to the outside world, we need those. Why? Asked. He was walking ahead of them, scanning the darkness with eyes that never stopped moving. Why do we need connections to people who do not understand us? Because they remind us what we are fighting for, replied. It is easy to forget, to become the weapon and lose the human. Those connections keep us anchored. Was silent for a moment. My connections are gone. Everyone I was anchored to is dead. Then find new ones, said simply. It is not a betrayal, it is survival. They walked in silence after that. The sensors were all clear. The night was quiet, but could feel something in the air, something wrong, like electricity before a storm, like pressure building behind a wall. The next day, met in the library as planned. Was there too, along with a boy named Minu who was apparently good at biology. They sat around a table covered with books and tablets and notes. It was the most normal thing had done in months. They talked about their project, which was about the native life forms of Nova. Knew a lot about this subject, though not from textbooks. She knew how the local plants tasted when you had nothing else to eat on a long patrol. She knew which animals ran from humans and which ones attacked. She knew the planet in ways these students never would. But she kept quiet and let them do most of the talking. She listened to explain her research. She watched draw diagrams. She saw Minu make jokes that were not very funny but made everyone laugh anyway. This is what normal feels like, she thought. This is what I am protecting. An hour passed, then two. The sun was setting outside the library windows, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Beautiful thought, so beautiful. Said, are you okay? You seem far away. I am fine, said automatically, just thinking. About what? About how I killed a creature last night. About how its blood smelled. About how I cannot remember the last time I did something just for fun. About the project, she said instead. I think we should add a section about the caves in the eastern region. The fungi there are interesting. Smiled, that is a great idea. You know a lot about this planet. I spend a lot of time outside. It was not a lie, just not the whole truth. They finished their work as the library began to close. Other students were leaving, gathering their things, heading home to dinner and homework and sleep. Normal things, safe things. Thank you for joining us, said as they walked out together. It was nice to get to know you better. Thank you for asking me, replied. The words felt strange in her mouth, like speaking a language she had forgotten. Same time next week. We still have more work to do. Yes, same time. They parted ways at the front door of the school, went left toward the residential domes, went right toward the military barracks. 2 different worlds, 2 different lives. But for a few hours they had touched. Walked through the darkening streets, replaying the afternoon in her mind. Smile, laugh, Minu's terrible jokes, such small things, such precious things. She was so lost in thought that she almost did not notice the feeling. That wrongness in the air, that pressure building. It was stronger tonight, much stronger. She stopped walking and looked up at the sky. It was clear and dark, stars beginning to appear. Nothing unusual, nothing visible. But she knew. In her bones, in her blood, in the part of her that had been changed forever, she knew. Something was coming, something big. And it was coming soon. It happened on a Wednesday during 3rd period. was in mathematics class working through equations that meant nothing to her. The teacher was explaining something about variables. Students were half listening, half daydreaming. Outside the window, the sun was shining. Birds were singing. Everything was peaceful. Then the alarm went off. Not the normal alarm, not the sound that meant a breach at the perimeter. This was different, louder, faster, a sound that had never heard before. It meant a breach inside the colony. Students screamed. The teacher tried to keep order, but panic was already spreading. Everyone knew the drills. Everyone knew to run for the bunkers. But the bunkers were on the other side of the building, and the screaming was already coming from that direction. Was moving before her mind caught up. She kicked her desk aside and ran for the door. Behind her, she heard the teacher calling her name. She did not stop. The hallway was chaos. Students running in every direction. Teachers shouting instructions that no one could hear. The alarm blaring over everything. And underneath it all, another sound. A clicking, scraping sound that knew too well. Hollow walkers inside the building. She grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall. It was heavy, metal, the closest thing to a weapon she could find. She did not have her blade. She did not have her armor. She was just a girl in a school uniform with a fire extinguisher in her hands. It did not matter. She kept moving. The first creature appeared at the end of the hallway. It was the size of a wolf, with too many legs and a mouth that opened in 3 directions. Its eyeless head swung toward the running students, sensing their fear, their heat, their life. Ran toward it. She hit it with the fire extinguisher as hard as she could. The metal connected with its head with a cracking sound. The creature stumbled but did not fall. She hit it again, and again, and again. Black blood splattered across her uniform, across her face, across the walls. The creature finally collapsed. Students were staring at her. Their eyes were wide, their faces pale. They had stopped running. They had stopped screaming. They just stared. "Move," shouted. "Get to the bunkers now." Her voice broke through their shock. They started running again, faster this time, with purpose. Turned and went the other direction, toward the sound of more clicking, more scraping, more death. She found on the 2nd floor. He had gotten a blade from somewhere, probably the emergency kit in the military liaison office. He was covered in black blood, fighting 3 creatures at once. Jumped into the fight. Her fire extinguisher was dented and bent, but it still worked as a weapon. She swung it at a creature's legs, knocking it down. Finished it with his blade. "Where are the others?" asked between strikes. "Sara is in the East Wing, and are in the basement trying to seal the rift." A rift opened inside the building. Directly under us, under the main hall. This had never happened before. Rifts always opened in empty spaces in the wilderness, far from human structures. Something was different this time. Something had changed. They cleared the 2nd floor and moved to the 3rd. More creatures, more fighting. Arms were burning, her lungs were burning, but she kept going. In the biology lab, they found a group of students hiding under tables. Among them was Minu, the boy from the group project. His face was white with fear. He whispered, "What is happening?" "Stay down," she said. "Do not move until we come back for you." She cleared the hallway outside the lab. 2 more creatures, then 3, then none. East Wing said, "Now." They ran through corridors that walked every day. Past classrooms where she had sat and pretended to be normal. Past lockers and bulletin boards and drinking fountains. All of it now covered in black blood and claw marks and terror. They found Sara in the library. She was standing on top of a table, fighting off creatures with a broken chair leg. Her wounded shoulder had reopened, blood soaking through her uniform. But she was still fighting. She was always still fighting. And behind her, cowering between the were and did not think. She threw herself at the nearest creature, knocking it away from the table. It turned on her, claws slashing. She felt pain across her arm. She ignored it. She grabbed the creature's head and twisted. Its neck snapped with a sound like breaking branches. And Sora finished the others. The library went quiet except for their heavy breathing. Was staring at. Her eyes were huge in her pale face. She was shaking so hard that could hear her teeth clicking together. She said, her voice was barely a whisper, You. Are you hurt? Asked. Shook her head slowly. Stay here, do not move, we will come back. Turned to leave but grabbed her arm. Wait, how can you do this? You are the same age as me, how can you? Looked at her, at this girl who had smiled at her, who had invited her to join a group project, who had crossed the wall and tried to be her friend. Because someone has to, said. Because if I do not, you die, all of you die. She pulled her arm free and ran out of the library. Behind her, she heard crying. Small, broken sounds that should never come from someone so young. They found and in the main hall. The rift was there, hanging in the air like a wound in reality. It was bigger than any had ever seen. Creatures were still pouring out of it, an endless flow of nightmare. Was holding the line with his bare hands, grabbing creatures and throwing them aside. Was working on the sealing device, his fingers moving fast over the controls. How long? Shouted. 2 minutes, shouted back. 2 minutes, an eternity in battle, an impossible length of time. Grabbed a blade from a fallen security officer. It was not her blade, but it would work. She joined the fight. The next 2 minutes were the longest of her life. Creatures came in waves. She cut them down and more took their place. Her arms screamed for rest. Her body begged for mercy, but she kept moving. She kept fighting, because stopping meant death. Not just her death, but everyone's death. Students in hiding, teachers in the bunkers, in the library with tears on her face. All of them depending on her. All of them counting on her to not fall, to not break, to not stop. Finally, his voice cut through the noise. Seal ready, everyone clear. They ran. The sealing device activated with a flash of white light. The rift screamed, actually screamed, as it collapsed in on itself. The remaining creatures dissolved into black smoke. And then silence. Stood in the ruined main hall of her school, covered in blood both black and red. Around her lay the bodies of more creatures than she could count. Her friends stood beside her, all of them hurt, all of them exhausted, all of them alive. They had won. But as she looked around at the destruction, at the broken walls and shattered windows and terrified faces, she knew that something had changed forever. The secret was out, the truth was exposed. Everyone knew now what the Dawn Guard really was, what she really was. And nothing would ever be the same again. The hours after the attack passed in a blur. Medical teams flooded into the school. Security forces cleared the building room by room. Students were led out in groups, their faces blank with shock, their eyes seeing things that would haunt their dreams for years to come. Sat on a bench outside the building. A medic had wrapped her arm where the creature had cut her. The wound was already healing, the modification doing its work. By tomorrow, it would be a scar. By next week, even the scar would fade. But the memories would not fade. They never did. Around her, the colony was in chaos. News had spread fast. The footage was everywhere, captured on students' phones and security cameras. Everyone could see what had happened. Everyone could see teenagers fighting monsters with nothing but blades and broken furniture. Everyone could see twisting a creature's neck with her bare hands. Her mother came running through the crowd. Had not seen her mother in 3 days. They lived in the same colony but in different worlds. Her mother worked in the agricultural dome, growing food for the settlement. She knew her daughter was Dawn Guard, but she did not know the details. She did not want to know the details. Her mother's voice was high with fear. Are you okay? Are you hurt? I saw the videos, I saw you fighting, I saw. She stopped. She was looking at her daughter like she was seeing her for the first time. Your hands, she whispered. Looked down. Her hands were still covered in dried black blood. She had washed them, but the blood had stained her skin. It would take days to fully come off. Mom said, "I am fine." But her mother was crying, tears rolling down her face, silent and steady. "You were so small," she said. "When you were born, you were so small, you fit in my hands, and now you—" She could not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Stood up and hugged her mother. It felt strange. She could not remember the last time she had hugged anyone. The modification made physical contact feel overwhelming. Too much sensation, too much input. But her mother was crying and did not know what else to do. "It is okay," she said. "Everything is okay." It was a lie. They both knew it, but sometimes lies were all they had. The colony council called an emergency meeting that night. Every citizen was asked to attend. The meeting was held in the central plaza, under the artificial stars of the main. Colonel Park spoke first. He was the military commander, an old man with white hair and hard eyes. He had commanded the Dawn Guard for 15 years. He had watched hundreds of young soldiers fight and die. "What you saw today," he said, "is the truth we have been hiding from you. The creatures that come through the rifts are not minor pests. They are not wild animals. They are intelligent predators that want nothing more than to kill every human in this colony." The crowd was silent. No one moved, no one breathed. "For years we have kept this truth from you. We told you the perimeter breaches were small incidents. We sanitized the reports. We protected you from the reality of what we face. But after today, we can no longer hide." He paused. His face was tired, old. "The Dawn Guard is our first and last line of defense. They are teenagers modified at the genetic level to fight these creatures. They are your children, your students, your neighbors, and they have been dying to keep you safe for years." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some people were crying, others looked angry, others looked lost. The breach today was different from any we have faced before. A rift opened inside the colony, inside our school, for the first time in history. This tells us that something is changing, something is escalating. We must prepare for what is coming. After he finished, the questions began. People shouted demands, accusations, fears. Why were they not told? Why were children fighting? Why was this allowed? What was going to happen now? Stood at the back of the crowd, watching. Her mother was beside her, holding her hand like she was afraid would disappear if she let go. A woman near the front raised her voice above the others. "I want to know about the Dawn Guard. I want to know about these children. Who are they? What have they been through? We have a right to know." Colonel Park looked uncomfortable. "The identities of the Dawn Guard are classified for their protection." "Protection? What protection? The whole colony saw them today. We saw that girl." The woman pointed, straight at. "We saw her kill a creature with her bare hands. She sits in class with our children. She is 17 years old. What have you done to her?" All eyes turned too. The crowd parted, creating a clear line of sight between her and the front of the plaza. For a moment no one spoke. The silence was heavy. Then stepped forward. Her mother tried to hold her back, but gently pulled her hand free. She walked through the crowd, through the sea of staring faces, to the front of the plaza. She stood beside Colonel Park. She looked out at the colony she had been protecting for 2 years, at the people she had bled for, fought for, killed for. "My name is," she said. Her voice was quiet, but in the silence it carried to every corner of the plaza. "I became Dawn Guard when I was 15. I received the modification that allows me to process fear and trauma without breaking down. It makes me faster, stronger, better at staying calm when I should be screaming." She paused, took a breath. "In 2 years I have killed over 300 creatures. I have been wounded 16 times. I have watched friends die. I have nightmares every night. I cannot remember what it feels like to be normal." The crowd was absolutely still. "You want to know what they have done to me? They have made me into something that can protect you. something that can stand between your children and the monsters while you sleep, something that keeps fighting when everything inside me is screaming to stop." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, but she kept going. "I do not do this for gratitude. I do not do this for recognition. I do it because someone has to, because there are rifts in reality and things are coming through, and if we do not stop them, everyone dies. Everyone." She looked at the woman who had pointed at her. "You ask what they have done to me. They have made me a weapon, but I am still human. I still want to go to school. I still want to have friends. I still want to do homework and worry about tests and maybe someday fall in love and grow old and die peacefully in my bed." A tear rolled down her cheek. She did not wipe it away. "But until the rifts stop opening, until the creatures stop coming, that life is not for me. So I fight, and I keep fighting, and I will keep fighting until I cannot fight anymore." The plaza was silent, could hear her own heartbeat, could feel every eye on her skin like weight. Then slowly a sound began, a single person clapping, then another, then more. The applause spread through the crowd like a wave, building until it was thunderous, echoing off the dome, filling the night. Stood there, tears still on her face, and did not know what to feel. For the first time they saw her, really saw her. The days after the speech were strange. Had spent 2 years being invisible, being avoided, being feared. Now suddenly everyone wanted to talk to her. Students who had never looked at her before now smiled and waved in the hallways. Teachers who had treated her like a ghost now asked how she was feeling. Even the cafeteria staff started giving her extra food. It should have felt good. It did not. It felt wrong, like wearing clothes that did not fit, like playing a part in a play she had not rehearsed. The school was closed for 2 weeks while crews repaired the damage. When it reopened, things were different. Security had been increased, emergency drills were more frequent, and the dawn guard no longer had to hide. They still ate lunch on the rooftop. Some things did not change. But now other students sometimes came up too, curious, wanting to talk, wanting to understand. Most of the Dawn Guard ignored them, never spoke to outsiders, had started talking again, but only to their own group. Sora tolerated the attention but did not encourage it. She answered questions when asked. She explained things she was allowed to explain. She smiled even when she did not feel like smiling. Came to find her on the third day, after school reopened. Was alone on the rooftop, sitting in her usual spot, watching the artificial sunset paint the ceiling in shades of purple and gold. "Can I sit?" asked. Nodded. Sat down beside her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was not comfortable, but it was not hostile either. It was the silence of two people trying to find words. "I have been thinking," finally said, "about what you said at the plaza, about wanting to be normal." "It was just the truth," replied. "I know, that is what makes it so sad." Did not know what to say to that, so she said nothing. "When I invited you to the group project," continued, "I thought I was being kind, generous, like I was doing something nice for the lonely girl in the back of class. I was so proud of myself." She laughed softly. It was not a happy sound. "And then I watched you kill those things in the library. I watched you move like something not human. And I realized that you were never the one who needed saving. You have been saving all of us every day, and we never even knew." "You could not have known," said. "We were not allowed to tell." "I know, but I feel ashamed. All those times I whispered about you with my friends, all those times I wondered why you were so weird, so distant, so different, I never thought, I never imagined." She stopped, took a breath. "I am sorry, I am so sorry." Looked at her. This girl who had been kind when she did not have to be, who had reached out when everyone else stayed away, who was now apologizing for things that were not her fault. "You do not need to be sorry," said. "You did nothing wrong." "I did nothing at all. That is the problem. I did nothing while you were out there dying for us. You lived, you went to school, you laughed and made friends and had a normal life. That is not nothing, that is everything, that is what we fight for." Wiped her eyes. She was crying soft tears that caught the light of the artificial sunset. "Can we be friends?" she asked. "Real friends, I want to know you, the real you, not the girl who sits in class pretending to be normal. The real." Was quiet for a long time. She thought about what it said about connections, about anchors, about staying human in a world that wanted to make her a weapon. "The real me is complicated," she finally said. "The real me has nightmares. The real me sometimes forgets how to smile. The real me does not know how to have normal conversations about normal things." "I do not care about normal," said. "I care about real." Looked at her, at this brave, strange girl who had decided to cross the wall between their worlds. "Okay," she said, "we can try." Smiled. It was a small smile, still wet with tears but genuine. They sat together and watched the sunset fade into artificial night. They did not talk much. They did not need to. Sometimes just being together was enough. The next few weeks were a learning process. Would find between classes and walk with her. She would sit nearby at lunch, even when the other dawn guard were there. She would text her at night, simple messages about homework or funny things that happened during the day. At first, did not know how to respond. Her texts were short and awkward. Her conversations were stilted. She had forgotten how to be a friend if she had ever really known in the first place. But was patient. She did not push. She did not demand. She was just there, constant and steady like a light in the darkness. Slowly began to remember. Remember how to laugh at bad jokes. Remember how to complain about homework. Remember how to gossip about teachers and roll her eyes at drama. Small things, normal things, human things. One night, after a patrol that had been worse than usual, came back to her room to find a message from. "I know tonight was bad. I heard the alarms. I hope you are okay. If you want to talk, I am here. If you do not want to talk, I am still here. Either way." Stared at the message for a long time. Her hands were still shaking. She could still smell the blood, could still hear the screams. She typed back, "It was bad, 5 creatures. We lost a new recruit, he was 16. Replied immediately, "I am so sorry, do you want me to come over?" "You cannot, the barracks are restricted." "Then you come here. My mom is asleep. We can sit on the roof and look at the stars. You do not have to talk, just come." Should have said no. She should have stayed in her room and tried to sleep. She should have kept the wall between her world and world intact. But she was tired, so tired of being alone with the darkness. She slipped out of the barracks and walked across the colony to the residential dome. Was waiting on the roof of her family's housing unit, wrapped in a blanket, looking up at the artificial stars. Climbed up and sat beside her, did not say anything. She just opened the blanket and wrapped it around both of them. They sat there until dawn, not talking, not moving, just existing together in the quiet. When the first light of morning touched the dome ceiling, finally spoke. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for asking." Leaned her head on shoulder. "This is what friends do. We do not let each other be alone." Did not trust her voice to respond. So she just sat there, wrapped in a blanket with a girl who had decided she was worth knowing. A month after the school attack, was summoned to testify before the colony council. The meeting room was large and cold, filled with politicians and administrators and military officers. They sat behind a long, curved table, looking down at the single chair where was told to sit. She was wearing her school uniform. She had chosen it on purpose. She wanted them to remember what she was, a student, a child, a 17-year-old girl who should have been worrying about grades and friends and the future. Councilwoman led the questioning. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for being fair. She had lost a nephew to the rifts 3 years ago. She knew the cost of this war better than most. "Please state your name and age for the record," she began. 17 years old. "How long have you served in the Dawn Guard?" 2 years. "And in that time, how many combat operations have you participated in?" Thought for a moment. "I do not have an exact count, more than 200. A murmur ran through the room. 200 operations. 200 times she had faced death. Councilwoman nodded. "We have called you here today to better understand what the Dawn Guard does and what you need to continue doing it. The events of last month have made it clear that our previous policies of secrecy were misguided. The people deserve to know the truth, and you deserve recognition for your service." Sat quietly. She was not sure what to say. "I would like to ask you a few questions, if I may," continued. "Not about operations or strategy. We can get that from the military. I want to know about you, about your experience." "Okay. When you wake up in the morning, what is the first thing you think about?" Considered the question. "Whether there was an alarm I did not hear, whether my squad is safe, whether today is the day the rifts overwhelm us." "Do you ever think about the future, your future?" "No, I try not to think past the next day." "Why not?" "Because thinking about the future feels like making promises I might not be able to keep." The room was silent. Eyes were sad. "What do you miss most about being normal?" Throat tightened. She had not expected that question. She had not expected to feel anything at all. "Boredom," she finally said. "I miss being bored. I miss complaining about homework. I miss thinking that the worst thing that could happen was failing a test or losing a friend or getting in trouble with my parents. I miss not knowing that monsters were real." A single tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. Leaned forward. "If you could ask this council for anything, what would it be? What do the Dawn Guard need?" Thought about her squad. About who never complained even when he should. About Sora, who fought with a wounded shoulder and never asked for rest. About who was finally starting to smile again. About who had lost everything and still showed up every day. "We do not need much," she said. "We know our job is dangerous. We know we might die. We accepted that when we took the modification. What we need is simpler than that." "What do you need?" "We need to be seen, not as weapons, not as tools, as people, as children who gave up their childhood so others could keep theirs. We need to know that our sacrifice matters, that when we fall, someone will remember our names." The room was absolutely still. "And for ourselves," continued, "we need hope. We need to believe that someday this will end, that someday the rifts will close forever and we can stop fighting, that someday we can learn how to be normal again, even if we have forgotten what normal means." She paused, took a breath. "But until that day comes, we will keep fighting, because that is what we do. That is what humans do. We face the darkness. We stand against the monsters. We protect our own, no matter the cost. And maybe that is the most human thing of all." Councilwoman was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick. Thank you for your honesty, and thank you for your service. This council will do everything in its power to support you and the Dawn Guard. You have my word." The meeting ended. Walked out of the council building into the bright afternoon sun. Was waiting outside. So were in Sora and End. They had all come to support her, even though they had not been asked. "How did it go?" asked. "I do not know, I just told the truth." "That is all you can ever do," said. They walked together through the colony streets. The sun was warm. People were going about their lives, shopping and working and laughing. Normal things, safe things. But now when they saw the Dawn Guard walking by, they did not look away. They did not pretend not to see. Some of them nodded. Some of them smiled. A few even stopped to say thank you. It was strange. It was uncomfortable. It was also somehow exactly right. That night went to her xenobiology class. She was on time for once. The classroom was full of students getting ready for the lecture. When she walked in, the room did not go silent. People did not stare. Instead, a few students said hello. Minyu waved from his seat, and sitting near the middle of the room, pulled out the empty chair beside her and gestured for to sit. Walked across the room. She felt the eyes on her, but they were different now, curious instead of afraid, respectful instead of suspicious. She sat down beside. "You are on time," said with a smile. "I know it feels strange. Good strange or bad strange. Thought about the battle last month, about the speech in the plaza, about the council meeting, about all the small moments in between when the world had shifted and changed around her. Good strange," she decided. "Definitely good strange." Mr. walked in and started the lecture. Something about local fungi and their medicinal properties. Took out her notebook and began to write. Outside the windows, the artificial sun was setting. Somewhere, rifts were still opening, creatures were still coming. The war was not over, it might never be over. But here, in this classroom, with her friend beside her and her squad somewhere in the building, and the whole colony finally seeing her for who she really was, felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt like she belonged. The lecture continued. Students asked questions. Normal things happened in a normal way. And the girl who fought beasts at dawn sat in her seat and took notes and let herself believe, just for a moment, that everything was going to be okay. It was a small moment, a quiet moment. But that was the thing about being human. The small moments were what mattered most. The quiet moments were what they fought for. And as long as they kept fighting, as long as they kept hopping, as long as they kept holding onto each other in the darkness, those moments would never be lost. This was what humanity carried. This was what made them strong. Not weapons, not modifications, not technology. Hope, connection, the stubborn refusal to give up. Looked at who was doodling in the margins of her notebook. She looked at the students around her, all of them alive because she and her squad had fought for them. And she smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it was real. And sometimes real was enough. And for the first time in 2 years, she felt something that might have been peace. She was not sure if that made things better or worse. She walked back down the stairs, back into the crowded hallway, back into a world that did not understand her. And she tried once again to remember how to pretend. It was going to be another normal day.